Let's dive into today's Go Global webinar series webinar. It is growing your business in India using online and offline tools. Thank you for joining us wherever you may be. And I'm looking at the list of attendees, so I see some of you from across the US. A very good morning to you. Good afternoon to those of you in Europe, and a very good evening to you over in Asia. This truly is an online global webinar. I also want to acknowledge the very many of you who tune into these webinars when they are recorded and therefore available on demand, and you can enjoy them when you want. So all in all, whenever and wherever you are welcome to today's webinar on growing your business in India using offline and online tools. My name is John Worthington. I'm CEO here at IBT Online, and I have the huge pleasure of introducing today's webinar. I'm doing so from our offices in London, and I very much enjoy all of these webinars because, well, there is just so much to learn. Again and again, we are confronted by what is happening online, and it's all moving very, very fast, and what is happening internationally, and nowhere more so than in India. And again, just to keep up, we need to keep the learning programs going, and that's why we have our Go Global webinar series. Now, before we start, I always do a little housekeeping. So those of you who are returnees, welcome back. You know the drill. It's all about me just laying out what we're going to be doing today. So this webinar is one of our Go Global webinar series to help you grow your sales, brands, and businesses globally. That's what it's all about. It's all about education. It's all about learning. It's all about how do we get more and do more together and sharing our experiences. The Go Global webinar series is about 3 years old now. We've been running this program for 3 years. We have a rich catalog of recorded webinars. So don't hesitate to go and check out the site www.ibt.onl/resources. And you'll find all of the past webinars. Looking forward, we have webinars ready to come. About the next 3 or 4 months is already staked out, so you can go and see what we're going to be discussing in the future and sign up already. This webinar today will be about 45 minutes long with a brief housekeeping introduction by me, that's sort of now, and then I will be handing over to my colleague Susanna. There will be 4 polls, so please be ready. We will launch them and invite you to participate. There will be time for questions at the end, so please, you can see questions. It's on your screen, right-hand side, third from the bottom. Click on that and please submit your questions and we'll get to them at the end. There is also a chat box. If you'd like to chat, please do. At the end of this webinar, there will be a brief survey. So please do give us about 30 seconds extra of your time. Help us do better in the future. Give us your feedback. And finally, do know that this is going to be recorded. It's going to be sent away to our back office, and on Friday, it will be emailed to all those who registered, and therefore it will be available to you on demand thereafter. So right now, that's done. Whether you're having coffee or tea, or even an evening, perhaps cocktail, let's get back into the main theme of growing your business in India using online and offline tools. And I'm proud to be joined online by 3 expert speakers from various locations. Today we have with us Susanna Hardy on the left of your screen, Director of Client Services. We have Moritz Favier, a senior analyst, and Srihari Mara, who also is a senior analyst from Tractus Asia. Just to introduce Susanna. Susanna is our lead presenter, heads up our global operations for focusing on helping companies use the IBT Online Global range of services. That's all about developing businesses internationally. When Susanna starts presenting, some of you probably know her already. If you don't, you might think she sounds like an American. Well, that's in many ways she is. Despite having been born and grew up in Germany, she was also educated in New York and went and has lived and worked in Brussels, Paris, and London. Susanna is truly a very international person and brings a wealth of online business, online marketing skills to the IBT Online team, and has worked with a wide spectrum of our clients, all about developing and succeeding internationally. Susanna has a career in international business. Let's dive to Sri Hari. Sri Hari over on the right has helped numerous companies and organizations to develop their businesses in India. He's added a lot of value to their projects in a very wide range of sectors. Sri Hari knows all about the industrial machinery, ICT, life sciences, aerospace and textiles. Sri Hari also is fluent in English, and today he will be speaking English, thank goodness for us, but he does also speak India, Malayalam and Tamil as well. In the middle, Moritz, another senior analyst at Tractus, also online with us today from India, is an expert for the 3 leading countries at India, Indonesia and Thailand on e-commerce subjects, but as well as that on technology, on aerospace, automotive and energy sectors. So if you're in those sectors, make sure that you listen and get in contact with Moritz. He has an extensive experience of projects in procurement and business development, partner searches, negotiations, and market research. Well, what a team we have today, and thank you for joining us, team. I'll be handing over shortly. I know that there's been a lot of hard work in preparing for this webinar, as the teams from IBT Online and Tractus have been researching, assembling and curating all of that information about growing businesses in India. And in today's world, that is very, very online, but as well, there are offline tools. And the phrase we have here is knowledge and expertise through direct experience. And that certainly applies to us, as every day we're working with and helping our clients in India. We have valuable, up-to-date practical experience for you today. We have first-hand case studies, unique insights into what works, and very importantly, what does not work. The result of this endeavor is today's webinar, but also do know there's an exporter's guidebook which is available for you in our resources section. So now, just before handing over, I jump to IBT Online. A word on IBT. We're a private company, US-based and European-based. IBT stands for International Business and Technology Online. We've been in business since 2002, so that's 15 years. And wow, I have to say, what fun. Time flies when you're having fun, and we've had a lot of fun at IBT, and we're very proud of our International Trade Award-winning Online Global program, which is all about website localization and international online marketing, today serving over 400 companies. And it's a proven track record with over 1,000 online global programs. All of that for sales, brand, and business development online. Now let's jump to Tractus. Tractus, as their excellent website will tell you, Tractus is Latin for progress. Well, if you didn't know that, you know that now. And you can see that Tractus is a very erudite company, a strategy and operations management consulting firm that delivers their clients the means to achieve their business goals in Asia. And they certainly do. Tractus is in many ways also a US company, as the founder directors are Americans, and yet they are totally Asia orientated as they live and work in their offices. They have 8 offices across Asia. That is in China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Myanmar, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. So I do encourage you, if you are seeking to do business in those markets beyond India, do get in touch with Tractus. Tractus has over 60 staff in those offices, and for over 20 years have been helping companies, advising companies with their full service market entry and expansion practice areas. There are a couple of different practice groups, and you should take away the knowledge that there's economic development programs, there's strategy and implementation, there is corporate finance, and the business incubator. Now, all of those, I'm sure, offer something for everybody. So I think Tractus comes to this webinar with a lot of practical experience. We're going to hand over now to Susanna as we talk about India, both offline and online, and how you can grow your business there. Susanna, are you ready to move on?
Thank you very much, John. And it's a great pleasure to talk about India Online from my part, and then to listen to Tractus talking about sort of the business environment, doing business in India. So we're basically divided this presentation into 3. First of all, talking about India overall. Morris is going to give us the main factors of how to succeed, really, and how they've had their their track record, what they've been doing for clients, and then we'll talk specifically, dive down specifically about some of the online side that we feel. We have left time for questions, as John said. Moritz, if you're there, we'd love to start with a bit of a snapshot of India.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susanna, and good morning for viewers in North America, and good afternoon for viewers in Europe, and good evening for viewers joining in Asia. India is the 7th largest country in the world in terms of land size, and with over 1.2 billion people, India has the 2nd largest population, following China. And this large population is split across 2,000 different ethnic groups that speak 25 different main languages, including English, and over 1,000 different dialects. Susanna will talk more about this later in today's webinar. The caste system in India, which some of you may be familiar with, is still alive, although not formally recognized or nearly as rigid as it used to be. A new globalized culture in India, according to traditional Western hierarchies, is developing. India is a diverse country in flora and fauna as well, with anything from tropical beaches to snowy mountains in the north. Hinduism is the leading religion, which is followed by 79% of India's population, followed by Islam, which is followed by 14% of India's population, Christianity, Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, and many local folk religions throughout the country. Such a large and diverse country also houses a large and sophisticated government, which we'll talk about in the next slide. Up until the early 1990s, India housed a closed protectionist government. During the early 1990s, economic policies were adapted to shift India's economy towards a market-oriented economy. Ever since, the central and local governments have been gradually liberalizing the Indian economy and opening up to the world in terms of trade and investment. Under the new government that was launched in 2014, a new campaign called Make in India was introduced to develop India as a global design and manufacturing hub. As part of the Make in India campaign, India is seeking to improve the ease of doing business in the country, its infrastructure, and liberalize FDI regulation. The current administration as a whole, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the leading BJP party, seek to strengthen the business environment for small companies as well, and has defined it as one of their main goals. They are doing so by changing regulation and reducing the bureaucracy that small companies face. The transition of a state-wise tax system to a national 4-tier tax system of 4 different tax brackets, anywhere from 5 to 28%, with luxury products typically levied higher, was introduced. The government has also reduced government and made it easier to obtain licenses, and is working with the World Bank to further improve the ease of doing business in the country. Introduced in tandem with the Make in India campaign is to empower India through digital means. There are several initiatives underway as part of the Digital India program, including initiatives to strengthen India's IT infrastructure, introduction of digital identification systems, and educational programs. Here in Pondicherry, where Srihari and I are currently based, we've already seen the effects of this program. We are now able to obtain 200 megabits per second fiber connections, something that was unheard of even in major Indian cities just a few years ago. Okay, something that will so as you see in this chart, the majority of Indians fall under the 35-year age group, and India's demographics will make it one of the youngest nations in the world by 2020. Over half of its 1 billion plus population will be below the age of 25 years by that year. Increased household income and sheer size of the young working population will increase demand for better products and facilities that foreign companies can potentially offer to the Indian market. The country also has a large number of people suited for labor-intensive jobs such as manufacturing and offer competitive business environment for companies looking to invest in India. There are over 25,000 higher education institutions in India, although some of these lack the quality that may be seen in the West. And many industry players feel that the graduates are missing out on what the industry really needs. Okay.
Shall I jump in for a quick poll there? Is this poll number 1? This is.
Yes, John.
Okay, here we go. There we go. Let me launch now, please, everybody. Following on from what was said, and I must say I found that very, very informative. Here we go. Related to yourselves, are you already? Do you already have a presence in India? So please tell us. Do you have a subsidiary? Are you with a local partner? Do you have online and a local partner? Is it online only, or are you thinking about it? Where are you at? Please share this information. I'm going to be sharing the information back with you. We have 29% are saying yes, online only, and 63% are saying thinking about it. So today our audience are largely looking at India as a potential market, and they're looking at ways to get in there. So thank you very, very much indeed. That is very interesting. This is going to close down the first poll. I do have a little sort of horn to say, hey, end of that poll. There we go. And I'm going to hand back.
Thanks, John. So India has experienced years of stellar economic growth, averaging GDP growth exceeding 7% almost every year. Such large numbers are necessary in pulling millions out of poverty. Agriculture is still the largest sector in terms of employment and income generation in India, accounting for roughly 50% of the country's GDP. The service sectors, construction, and manufacturing are some of the fastest growing industries in India, generating millions of new jobs every year. Economic growth slowed slightly this year, though. The demonetization of 86% of India's cash last year has had a devastating effect on the informal sector in India. Another factor that hurt economic growth this year is the amount of bad loans with Indian banks, meaning loans whose repayment is due for 90 days or more. The overall bad loans in industrial sectors exceed 20% of loans with banks, requiring the government to keep pumping money into banks to keep them afloat. Nevertheless, strong economic growth is leading to the emergence of a consumer class in India that by some accounts, as seen in this graph, will be among the largest in the world within the next 2 decades. Moving on to foreign investment. So another crucial factor for economic growth driving is foreign direct investment. It is also an important source of non-debt financial resources for the economic development of India. Foreign companies invest in India to take advantage of relatively lower wages, special investment privileges such as tax exemptions and incentives, and so on. For a country where foreign investments are being made, it also means achieving technical know-how and generating employment. With 697 greenfield FDI projects and an investment of $63 billion last year, India ranked #1 in terms of inbound investments. The majority of these investments, though, is represented by the holding companies of Mauritius and Singapore, set up by North American or European firms. The reason behind this routing is due to the tax treaty between both these countries and India, that stipulates a dividend tax. Okay. Moving on to logistics and online payment. The e-commerce sector in India, which Susanna will speak more about later during this webinar, is unique in the way logistics service providers operate. India's e-commerce retail logistics are growing rapidly, with rural and tier 2 and tier 3 cities being the main drivers of economic growth. Pondicherry, where Srihari and I are speaking from today, is considered a tier 2 city, and the emergence of online e-commerce has allowed us to obtain products that are not available through regular retailers here. There are three distinct logistics service providers in India, three types. Captive logistics arms of e-commerce retailers that are part of their operations make up a large part. India's largest online retailers, Amazon and Flipkart, both have their own captive logistics arms, which take part of their logistics operation in their arms. Traditional logistics providers have adapted to e-commerce as well. The main player being India Post, a state-owned Indian postal company that distributes packages. We here in Pondicherry get most of our packages that way, and Amazon has recently signed an agreement with India Post to work together in the country. We have developed a personal relationship with the mailman that comes here every day, and he knows us by name by now. And it is due to the low cost and their reach to rural places that India Post has become the largest logistics service provider in India. The third player is a small selection of foreign-owned logistics companies such as Blue Dart and FedEx, which focus solely on e-commerce. These traditional LSPs have a large market share in India as well, albeit smaller. India's online payment platforms are also unique, and then cash and delivery payment dominate the market. Consumers in India are hesitant to use credit cards online, fearing fraud risks. Mobile wallet use is currently on the rise in India, with domestic players Paytm and Freecharge growing rapidly. Moving on to success factors for Indian companies, for companies operating in India. So as with most companies, India has its own unique and subtle manner in which business is conducted. Success here can depend on appreciating and understanding the cultural aspects, in addition to patience, long-term commitment, and personal attention and involvement. Being such a unique market, it is important to adapt products and services to the demands of local customers. Many sectors, such as construction and retail, are only accessible with the use of a local Indian partner. Finding the appropriate partner in such a big market is important, but also really difficult. Indian consumers and business are also considered to be very price conscious, and adapting to that is important. A good example of this is the automotive sector, where foreign cars sold on the Indian markets are significantly modified to reduce their costs. Multi-channel marketing to reach a diverse audience, strong relationship building with local partners, and selecting the right business location in India are other success factors often cited by foreign businesses operating in India. So now we'll have Susanna from IBT Partners talk a bit more about website localization and the best way to increase penetration in India's online market.
Well, Moritz, before we jump into that, I actually have another poll, and I want to thank you for those factors for success. And really, that relates to this poll. I mean, very well presented. Thank you. Great information. So please, everybody, related to what you just heard, here we go. What is your main export challenge for India? Please share with us, related to what Moritz was just talking about. Is it partners? Is it about bureaucracy? Is it payments? Is it engagement with online, or is it online marketing? Now, what do you have to say there? Let me give you some feedback for those. A lot of clicks coming in from different things. So 33% are saying it's all about finding that partner. Another 25% are saying it's bureaucratic, and 25% are saying it's all about the online piece. Finding the right partner actually has gone up to 50%. So there you go. A lot of it's all about finding that local partner. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm going to put on my little closing dancing horn. There we go. And I'm closing the second poll. Thank you for sharing. Over to Susanna.
Thank you very much, John. That's actually a very interesting poll, and emphasizing very much also what Moritz was saying about finding the right partner and how Tractus can also help that. I wanted to start really with just giving some overview, snapshot picture of India online and where it is. It's the numbers are kind of staggering, actually. If you look at them just in terms of their uptake here, I mean, there is 108 million new internet users in 2016 alone. In fact, these numbers are a tiny bit, India has now just overtaken the United States in terms of Facebook users. So these are slight estimate numbers, but they're just quite recent as well. It's forecast that there'll be certainly over 500 million internet users by the end of this year. That's pretty well getting to be, by next year, by the end of next year, we're going to have double the size of the United States, put that in context. So it really is an extraordinarily large market in that way. There are lots of challenges in the internet world, on the online world in India, but basically they come down to one thing, which is just that not enough hardware. There are few public Wi-Fi spots, broadband connections with faster speeds, are not yet hitting into the urban lower income areas and the rural ones. Although, as Moritz and Srihari were saying earlier, this is moving quickly in the right direction. So that this is really coming up very well in terms of what one can be looking forward to do in the coming years in India. Now, one of the key factors about this as well, and you'll see this again and again in how we look at websites in India, India is very, very much what we call a mobile-first market. This means that people discover the internet and probably engage in internet thereafter via their mobile phones. And there's it's been a huge uptake in mobile phone use and penetration rates. It actually came down a little bit earlier this year, but that seems to have been a blip caused by this change in tax and especially the demonetization that Moritz was talking about, where there was a blip over a few months, but it seems to be heading straight back up to strong demand. Now, what are the key features of a mobile-first market? The first is that mobile is used both by consumers and by businesses. So if you have a B2B strategy, and you're, say, a UK company with a B2B strategy, you're going to think that you probably are going to be engaging with businesses on their PCs. But in India, that is not always the case at all. Do not take for granted that your business to business is also going to be mobile, tablet, or phone enabled. So it's not just a consumer. The second major characteristic of a mobile-first market that we see in India is that it is highly engaged in social media. And this, as I mentioned earlier, is reflected in the big uptake, the big sort of reach out and uptake in popularity of Facebook. But there are also lots of other social media platforms. And it is also a very reactive social media market. In other words, if you put interesting photos or interesting content up there, you will get a reaction. Again, this is quite different from more mature markets, say the UK or the United States, which tends to be a little bit more discreet about what they're putting online, or perhaps just a little bit more less willing to display emotion and reaction to their public. And finally, a big major characteristic of a mobile first is that they are very receptive to both image and video. This is in slight contrast to or in slight challenge to the fact that they don't always have good internet connection, so that would require better bandwidth. But when you have good video content, ability to upload easily, good picture content, you get a very strong reaction to any kind of online marketing in the Indian market. That's certainly our experience. But I wanted to go back and just say first a bit more about website localization in India. And I think the easiest way for us to really talk about that is to get back to the basics of search engines and sort of, how search engines operate. And they're complex beasts with many factors incorporated into their algorithms. Google claims it has over 200 different elements to its algorithms. But I think the overriding thing that you have to keep in mind, the overriding characteristic, is that it is market specific and user focused. In other words, search engines are taking the view from the person searching, not necessarily from the business who wants to be found. So if you take the point of view of the person who's searching, then as a company, you need to make sure that you are well found. This means that it is that Google or the other major search engines, Baidu, Naver, Yandex, whoever, are all saying, in what way does this searcher, does this person in their local market want to receive, and how do they rank things most appropriately? This means that you get different results according to different markets. So just because something works in terms of your keywords, in terms of your image or whatever in, say, the United States, does not mean it's going to work in the Indian market, even if it's in English. The English keywords can be different, the English imagery can be different, and the connotations will be different. So you'll have, search engine optimization is therefore extremely country specific. So leading on from that, for us, it goes without saying that websites and localized websites also must be market specific and user focused. I've listed there on the right-hand side of the slide sort of the 10 biggest elements that we tend to highlight when we look at working with companies to localize their websites. Now, some of them are more important than others, or some of them are harder than others, but in each case, they should be considered. Do you adapt your design? Well, you might have to if you're going into a new market, and certainly India does have specifics for its design. Certainly you want it to be mobile enabled, and certainly you want to take in some cultural aspects into consideration. So those are the sort of the 10 key aspects that we would say you would want to have for a localized website. And one of the, I think there's maybe two that I'd like to just really focus on just at the moment. The one is registering your domain name. That's very important in India, and I will get back to that later. And also that you have the right regulatory requirements. This is a factor that people are perhaps ignoring in the past. We would, signal a little bit of an orange light there. This is something that's going to come down harder and harder on companies in the next 2, 3, 5 years. Looking out, even April 2018, there will be some new regulation coming on board, and the enforcers are getting stricter. So even in a very mobile-enabled, very growth, very new market like India, you do need to take account of regulatory requirements.
Susanna,
before I move on, John, if you want to do a poll.
Susanna, thank you very much indeed. Those TLDs, top-level domain names, which are country-specific, absolutely crucial, and we see that again and again, and that relates to this poll. So please, I'm asking you to get active, get engaged again. Here we go. I'm launching the third poll, which talks about localized websites for your export markets. There you go. As you look at the world and you export, yes, are you participating? Are you Do you have localized websites for your main exports, a few exports? Are you thinking about it, or none at all? Let me give you feedback. 10% are saying yes, they're out there and they're doing it. So bravo, well done you. You're at the front edge, the cutting edge, and the successful edge. 17% in a few, 50% are saying they're thinking about it. Well, please do think about it. Do look at what's available, and 25% are saying no. Well, there you go. That's your feedback. I'm shutting the third poll down and saying, Susanna, thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, John. Just diving straight into India now. Now, in many ways, if you're an exporter from, say, Canada, the United States, Europe, you do have a big advantage in that you already know Google, because Google is by far the dominant search engine in India. Although it is being chased by the Chinese contestant Baidu. So Google has, I mean, it used to have about 96% market share. It now has just under 90% for that. And it really has captured the English language urban focused websites. But what where Baidu is now chasing it, is much more now going on to the second level, which is really the language-specific websites. And that's, I think, going to be a very interesting sort of tug of war in the years to come. If you're new to the Indian market, we would, say stick with the English Indian ones. But really, the very high growth is going to come from these specific language websites that we're seeing. So while most, India has a lingua franca of English, most people speak English and are happy using it. But even in English is their second language for many people. So the next big thing, as I said, is that they're going to have these new language coming on. The Internet and Mobile Association of India is reporting that the amount of Hindi content is up about 100% in 2015-2016. And the biggest group is probably Hindi itself. There's about 400 million people call themselves Hindi their mother tongue. And Baidu basically has figured this out and is really chasing this. So you're getting an a growing number of Hindi-only sites. But they launched their app called Mobile Market, and they launched that in Bengali and Tamil, Urdu, Telugu, and others. So there's the battle between Google and Baidu is going on at that level. The English-only ones tend to be much more sort of Google-focused at the moment. So, for most clients, it's probably a step too far at this stage, but certainly you're going to have to bear that in mind and figure out who your clients are. And if they are comfortable in English, then you're okay with Google. So moving on, just a quick word about some of the e-commerce. And here, Moritz did mention some already on logistics and payments. But I wanted to also give you sort of a quick snapshot of what it looks like in terms of India. The main players are either local players like Flipkart and things like that, but and Yabong, Fashion You, but even these ones are very often backed by foreign venture capital. SoftBank has invested massively in Flipkart, for example. And I think that, again, just like the search engines, India is seen as a bit of a battleground for market share between the big global titans. And Moritz already mentioned Amazon. Amazon certainly has done a huge amount of investments across India, but bringing up their logistic platforms, and in terms of their marketing, and in terms of trying to make it really a lot easier. I think part of that is that they just got so burnt in China. Today their market share in China is really tiny, and they've just been superseded by Alibaba. Now Alibaba is also chasing Amazon in many markets in India, but it does mean that Amazon's model in India, like its domestic e-commerce champion, Flipkart and Snapdeal, look more like the marketplaces of Alibaba in China. So Amazon has also adapted for that. Amazon recently announced a $5 billion investment into its logistic platforms in India alone. B2B e-commerce is actually not as developed as B2C in India, but is growing. Hard to tell, but an estimate of about eMarketer estimates it's over 30% per annum. The payments and delivery section has already been addressed by Moritz and remains, I guess, the biggest visible challenge that e-commerce faces in India. Now, I wanted also talk about sort of, you know, once you get a website, what do you do with it? How do you use it? And here we want to talk about social media and what that means in terms of using that for India. One of the things that marketeers look at very closely is this phenomenon of what's called social catching up with search. This means basically that rather than looking only at, say, a Google, people looking for things on the internet now increasingly look also at their social media apps. So in the past, if I'm in the middle of Mumbai and I'm saying, where's a great place to buy a pair of blue jeans? I used to go on Google. Now I could very well be going on my WhatsApp or my Facebook network or different communities I have established and I participate in as a consumer or as a business. And you see this again, this is very typical of what we call mobile first markets. This is the reason why we feel strongly that any localized website has to have an accompanying social media strategy. It's no good building it without using it. And I'd like to show the last few slides I have about how that can be used and how some examples of Indian websites.
Shall we jump into the last poll?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, well, look, thank you for that. Social catches up with search, yes, and above all in those markets which are mobile first. So here we go, launching this one. Please, everybody, grab your mice, click and tell us, how do you market internationally? Trade shows, we all love trade shows. Everybody still goes to trade shows. I do personally. Online and social media, well, there's a careful balance now between these two, and perhaps online is taking over, but paid advertisement, distributors, manufacturers, reps, visiting, well, it's important to get out there and shake hands. So what are you telling me? Well, I'm being told 50% still go to trade shows. 67% are saying for them it is an online and social media world. 40% are saying through distributors, and 30% are saying that they still get out there and visiting prospective international customers. Well, I mean, I thank you for that. You know, these do vary from over time, and we've seen the variance this year in 2017. I'm going to close this poll by saying goodbye to the polls and closing it and handing you back to Susanna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. That's interesting. I guess for us, this graph here, these diagrams here, kind of illustrated what we found was needed in terms of social media and how social media can be used today. In the past, I think a lot of companies worked on a sort of bilateral exchange with individual customers or partners or suppliers. And today it is a much more complex view, and especially in mobile-enabled, mobile-first markets, like, for example, India. You know, customers speak to each other. Customers probably speak also to your competitors, to your partners, to your suppliers. They want to know what your company is about, and they want to know more about your ethos and your mission statement. They want to have your community. They want to have that notion of community, and they want to have a better understanding of who they're buying from. And they get that from the other customers. So that's why social media is really so important to engage in. You see this in huge companies that have emerged on the world scale only in the last few years. I mean, Airbnb and Uber are classic examples. Who, you know, they're live and die by the recommendations and thumbs up given by their customers. Now, in India, that's absolutely the case as well. But again, certainly if you're in the UK and US and Europe, you have an advantage because you already probably know some of the major social media platforms used in India. This map shows, I think, just how dominant Facebook is in the world today. The large red above India is, of course, China, which has its own champions. And again, they are very much eating into, or trying to eat into, India and Southeast Asia. You're seeing, WeChat and things like that getting into Southeast Asia. But at the moment, Facebook is very much a dominant player in India. Here we have just some graphs about the number of Facebook users and the take-up of social media across India compared to other countries. If you remember those first stats about how many people are online in India and how much further we still have to go, if you assume that penetration rate of internet is only at 35%, yet the number of Facebook users has just exceeded that of the United States in April of this year, you can imagine how important India is for Facebook. Facebook has really recognized this and is putting a lot of investment into making sure that they maintain that strong market share. There's still quite a lot of imbalance, I would say, in Facebook users in India. Only about a quarter of Facebook users in India are female, and that's something that is it's quite different from sort of the United States and European markets. So experts say that this is basically a reflection of the fact that women have slightly less access to some technology and smartphones, perhaps particularly in rural areas, than men. But there's still certainly a long way to go in terms of Facebook users in India. Now, advertisement in India on Facebook continues also to grow strongly, and we have some records on this and some case studies on this. I just wanted to share with one case study with you on this. This is a screenshot from an Indian website that we manage for a client of ours, and it's very interesting to see both the choice of blogs and Facebook putouts that they're using in these areas, and also see the reactions that they can get. It is an enormously reactive market, and a great market for returns, as well as to drive business to distributors, for example. I just wanted to quote Laurent, who's head of business development of this company, who just said, basically, you can't just build it and assume they'll come. You can't just build your website and just assume that people will find you. You actually need to get behind the social media and make sure that you've got good social media out there working for you as well, particularly in huge high growth markets like India. With that, I would encourage you as well to go online. We have, if you wanted to get more on those client experiences, we have them on our website. If you go to IBT Online, wt.onl, and go to the client stories, you can download the videos for that. John, I'm conscious of time, so I've sort of left it at that.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you had any questions.
Yeah, I've got 25 questions, so we're not going to be getting to them all. It's interesting, some of the questions, of course, are very social media driven because of the issues about Facebook and others, but I'm just going to pick a couple which I think are representative, and clearly some people here are very informed on the goods and services tax issues. And somebody's saying, can they explain, can we have a quick explanation about GST? Is it rolled out? So I guess that's over to you guys. Anybody jumping on that question? Moritz?
John Srihari here. I'll be taking the question.
Srihari, please, yes.
Yeah, so with regards to GST, yes, it is fully rolled out now. So on the 1st of July 2017, the government of India overhauled its indirect tax regime by implementing the goods and service tax, or also called as the GST. So the GST is a major reform that creates a common market across India's 29 states and 7 union territories, thereby increasing certainty and the ease of doing business. Under the current system, all goods and services are categorized under taxation of 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. Some of the goods and services are given zero taxes, it's nil. And GST is just one indirect tax for the whole nation and makes India one unified common market. I think GST will ensure that the tax rates and structures are common across the country and will help doing business in India easier. I hope I could answer your question.
I think so. I mean, I think that we'll follow this up. I mean, it actually, when you say that, it does makes me think of the European Union, one unified market. Well done. Please, I've got more questions coming in. Do know if we don't answer them now because we're running out of time, we will get back to you in the days that come. I'm going to grab this one because it's an online one, one for Susanna. It says that they, a US company, have several distributors across India. They have a US website. Do they need a website for India? Well, what's your message, Susanna?
A resounding yes. I think it's really, we do a lot of websites for companies who are looking to manage and find distributors in their export markets. It's one of the key reasons why people choose localized websites. Not only do they drive and generate business and leads for the distributors by helping to grow your brand, but they also allow you to have a platform to manage your different distributors. And India being the huge place it is, you're going to need more than one distributor. So, you know, having a single platform that they can access where you are centralizing the marketing, you are centralizing data sheets or anything else of information, as well as you are in control of the brand, makes a lot of sense. So, you know, one thing we would say is do not give your domain name to your distributor. Keep it. That's your brand. That's your sort of online real estate as it is. So have a centralized website for all of India that all of your distributors can log into, can access, can use as a platform for their business, for increasing your sales. And at the same time, you have social media platforms on it that will allow you to build your brand in a local way. So that's the key reason why we think it is very important to have a localized website if you have a distributorship model. I hope that answered the question enough, John. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I do know, Susanna, that there's certainly knowledge and expertise through direct experience there again, and sounded very, very practical. I'm going to take this one because we all hear about the reforms in India. And this one is a question just saying, are global investors noticing any change? And what support do you guys offer? So this is a very direct question for you. Over to you, who's taking that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the clients that we speak around the world and as we recommend our investment decision, India today is one of the highest rated destinations for foreign investments right now globally. India has got close to 6% growth rate, stable government, good macroeconomic indicators like low inflation, the deficits are under control, plus it's got massive reforms aimed at the right direction. The recent government decision on demonetization of the rupee and implementation of the goods and service tax has reduced the growth in the economy, but I think this is a short-term pain and the country will gain substantially in the long term. On the support part, under Tractor Services, we have a business incubator model where a dedicated team directed by our senior management supports the foreign companies' business development efforts in India and also executes business and strategy development, recruiting, and day-to-day business operation. This would be the most cost-effective model for a new company looking to enter India and explore opportunities. Over to you, John.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And that does sound everything I've read about it and heard about it. I do encourage listeners to research and investigate that and get in touch. I guess we've got one more question. Again, the questions are turning out to be all about Facebook and Instagram and things like this. Susanna, a last word on running social media specifically for the India market. The question sort of is, do we need to run social media specifically for India?
I think that's a good question. I don't know if the client, the company asked it is American or US, UK, but what's interesting, I think, is if you're creating content for one market, it's not always automatically transposable to the other markets. Just like search engines that are localized, you will need to tweak your social media in every market, even if it's just to give it a quick, last check to make sure it's still fit for purpose. The words can be optimized per market, and so it's no good sort of putting it out there if it has so little effect. You do need to make sure that things are culturally appropriate, that things are visually appropriate, that they're mobile enabled, for example. So all of the social media that you're putting out on one market, you can't necessarily use it automatically for other markets, but you can certainly use it as a strong first draft and rework it a little bit and make sure that it's the right scene. I would add to that, though, very often putting it in different markets, you'd be very surprised at the different results you get from those markets. And that can also lead you to rethink some of your social media strategy and say, well, that market, is such a very reactive market, it's worth investing in that little bit extra, for example, for a Facebook paid ad or something like that, because the return on investment is so much stronger. And certainly we found return on investments to be very strong in these mobile first markets like India. So I hope that exporter, that particular exporter, has a good success also with that. Thank you.
Well, we can always continue the dialogue. Please continue to submit questions and we will respond to those. It is definitely time now. I'm sorry we have to end. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for participating. We hope that you enjoyed the webinar. We hope that you found lots of useful information and lots of great takeaways to help you grow your business in India. Don't forget, by the way, that there is an exporter's guidebook to India. If you'd like that, then just go to the website www.ibt.onl/resources. Please, there is going to be the survey in a moment, and we'd love to get your feedback. And of course, I remind you that this recording will be made available to you on Friday. Just a quick heads up for the next webinar in 2 weeks' time on Wednesday, October the 11th. That's just 2 weeks away. We're turning our attention to Canada. How to sell online in Canada, website localization, online marketing in the Canadian market. And it is now my pleasure to say thank you. Thank you to Susanna. Thank you to Maritz. Thank you to Srihari. And really from everybody who was there and attending and listening. This is a round of applause to you guys. I think you've done a fabulous job, and I want to thank you so much for everything you've done and say to you all, this must end now. It's time to end, and let's all go and grow our business in India using online and offline tools. And have a great day or evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.